Welcome. I'm here with Christian Weyer and Dominick Baier from Thinktecture. So Christian, you're a solution architect at Thinktecture, and Dominick, you're a security expert or security consultant. So
I'm trying to be an expert.
Trying to be an expert. Yeah. So welcome to Örebro and TechDays. Actually, this is your third year.
Third or fourth year, actually.
Third year, because we only have had it for 3 years. So.
Yeah, well, then,
okay. But this is your...
That's how solution architects work. They are trying to exaggerate things, right? Yeah, okay, so it's my third year.
Yeah. But this is your first year at TechDays, but not your first time in Sweden.
No.
You've been here a couple of times before. So actually, I saw both your sessions today. Christian, you were doing a kind of a journey through Windows Azure platform. I think you called it a short journey through the platform.
It was only 8 minutes over time.
Only 8 minutes.
7 minutes over time, so
that was a short journey.
That's fantastic for me, actually.
Yeah, but I mean 60 minutes is really that's short time to cover.
Yeah,
it's such a broad platform. But I thought it was a really good session.
Yeah, thank you.
And one interesting bit that I picked up was you have this idea of running tasks in web roles. You call it a web worker role?
Yeah, that's just how I call it, yeah.
Yeah, can you explain that? Because that was interesting.
Yeah, so when we talk about Windows Azure and the role model, we usually hear about 2 or in the meantime 3 roles, which is the web role, the worker role, or the VM role for migrating stuff, basically. But since one of the more recent SDKs, what we can do is we can have a web role with background functionality. So it's actually a worker role with full IIS.
Yeah.
So
and it's all about utilizing the instances fully.
Yeah.
Because it can do more work than
exactly.
just laying around waiting for HTTP requests.
Exactly. So I did 2 proof of concepts for 2 clients in Germany, and we used exactly this pattern, the web worker role pattern, if you want to call it like that. And the good thing was it was not a real 24/7 application, so it was fixed to a time zone. So for Germany and Austria, and in the night. UTC night, we did some admin task, talking to the database, cleaning up stuff, sending out emails, generating PDFs and things like that. And over the day, so from, I don't know, 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. or something like that, we used it just as a website in IIS, and that's quite cost effective in the cloud.
Yeah, because that's what it all boils down to, cost, because it's having another role or instances of another role that costs more.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned cost effective architecture.
No.
Was it cost?
No, it's COA.
COA. Oh, it's
cost oriented architecture.
Cost oriented. Sorry. Oh,
I thought you're talking about components.
We really need more acronyms. That's what this whole business
that's why we brought it up.
Yeah, good.
New
cost-oriented architecture.
And new TLA for the cloud.
Oh, great.
but cost-oriented architecture is really an important point today if you try to convince customers to go to the cloud and to move into the cloud. Because when talking to them the first time or the first times, what you do is some kind of cloud assessment in order to get an idea and the first glimpse of what they want to do and how much it will cost, and then you need to think about or rethink about some architectural parts. So yes, cost is very important. Otherwise, you may completely fail in the cloud if you're not aware of which feature, which service, to which extent costs what.
Yeah, and people aren't used to that way of thinking in these terms. The cost's always been there, but it's been hidden.
Yes, they are hidden in some other budgets, in some other projects, I don't know. Yeah. If you talk to the clients and ask them, okay, so tell me, what does your HR application cost you per month?
Who knows?
I don't know.
Bandwidth? Who knows?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
that's interesting.
It's an issue because in order to convince people to go to the cloud, it would be nice to have some kind of comparison from now, what it costs now, and what it will cost when you go to the cloud, and that's a problem.
Yeah, it's the hardest part might not always be to make the calculation what it will cost, but to see what it costs today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because based on, well, okay, there are some issues with the pricing model and pricing models.
Yeah, it's
but it will be
easy,
improved, hopefully, and there will be some better tooling around it, maybe. But yeah, the actual issue is they do not know what it costs today.
Yeah.
And then argumentation with the CXO level is quite tedious.
Yeah. So, Dominic, I saw your presentation as well, and when it started, I tweeted, now this is going to be some federated security rock and roll with Dominick Baier. But actually, it was. It was, but only in the end, because you didn't. I really like the way you lay up your presentation, because you started with the nuts and bolts of Windows Identity Foundation. So you went through how it actually looks in code, so people got an understanding of this is how it actually works, and then after that you showed the slides that people like me from Microsoft usually talks about how easy it is to do single sign-on and move your application from on-premise to the cloud and still do single sign-on. So that was really nice. So Windows Identity Foundation that's quite a powerful new. It's actually a Windows update, right?
Yes, that's what I started with, basically telling people that I'm not talking about something which is a Codeplex download. No. Yeah, it's basically really like a really important product from Microsoft that comes as an MSU file, and MSU stands for Windows Update. Yeah. So that means it updates the Windows operating system itself, and it's serviced by Windows Update after that.
So it's in the platform.
Yes.
And it will be built into the .NET framework for sure in future versions.
That's what we heard through the grapevine. Yeah.
But at some point.
Absolutely. I mean, on one hand, you must say WF is the foundation for ADFS, and ADFS is part of the server platform, right? It's a server role. Yeah. So WF is also part of the server or the Windows platform itself. Yeah. Yeah. So it is very important, and Microsoft started moving a number of important products to WF. So SharePoint 2010 being the most prominent, I guess. Yeah. CRM is now being ported. I think the reporting services that run in Azure.
And SQL Server reporting services be next as well.
So but the Azure version is now already, right? So it's token based. Yeah. The SQL Azure OData endpoint, for example, uses WF tokens.
And the data market, codenamed
the data market,
Dallas.
And of course it plays really nicely with the access control service,
which
Fabric. It doesn't demand this, but
access control service is built with WF. Yeah. Right.
But you can integrate it with other implementations.
Right. But again, WF is a really. I made this joke today saying, like, whenever you hear the word foundation, you kind of know it's hard work. It actually isn't this time, yeah? No. I mean, there are all the base APIs to claims enable arbitrary applications. Yeah. And we have the nice integration, which is kind of easy to use for WCF and for ASP.NET. Yeah. And actually, the way I structured a session like I did is because, as you said, many people see these presentations where they say, okay, there's this tool, FedUtil, the Federation wizard,
Just click
3 times and you are federated, Well,
but how does that work?
Exactly.
You never get to that.
And I think my point is this. When you understand how WF works at the core, then federation and things is just a side effect of it.
Yeah, it's a nice side effect.
The core stuff is needed for making federation work so easily, but it's a side effect of the WF infrastructure, how they wire themselves into the plumbing. Yeah.
So I think at a worldwide partner conference, you would sell this via the federation path, but at TechDays, you should sell it the way he did.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true. And I also saw you showed your starter SDS project for doing federated authentication,
which is now officially powered by Windows Azure.
Yeah. I played with the latest version. Okay. It's really nice. But I also saw you working on a new version.
Yeah. So it's kind of a long story, but to cut it short. is at the moment I'm the only architect, the only developer, and the only tester on this project. Yeah,
okay.
And it grew and grew. And when I started with that, I thought like, let's write a really easy, simple to use thing. I think that the first version were like only 15 files, like an Xcopy deployment thing just into a virtual directory, and that's it. It was running. Yeah, and then people asked for features, and of course you look what other people are doing, and you're learning. Yeah, so let's look how ADFS does it, for example, and that makes sense. And so we added features. Then we added Azure support to it, and while it's totally perfectly working, I also think there are some things you can improve here. So for example, my design goal was to have the same code base for Azure and on-premise, for example, and it turns out that is hard to do. So the thing I ended up with, which I don't like, is that even if you're running on-premise, you have a dependency on the Azure SDK, for example. So the next version will use all with dependency injection. So we basically inject the Azure code, and if you don't need the Azure code, then you just don't use it, and it's just a perfectly normal IaaS application. Yeah,
and it will be built on the MVC framework, which might suit the thing you're doing in the actual token service.
Yeah, so
better.
MVC3, there are a couple of reasons for that. First, I kind of fell in love with Razor.
Yeah, that's nice. Razor is nice.
And the next thing is, of course, I always knew that, but I just didn't, care about it, is the routing stuff. So now I can have WCF services and MVC controllers under the same URL namespace. One is issuing WS Federation tokens, one is doing WS Trust, one is doing REST endpoint, one is doing OAuth in the future. So and it's the same URL structure, and it's not like, oh, this thing is a .svc file and this is a whatever and this is ASPX, and that is kind of nice. And by being able to kind of structure it that way, also that the code becomes much more maintainable.
That's nice. And
so it's a mixture. Mixture of MVC, MVC3, and WCF4. Because the routing feature.
I use a thing called service route. Or service route. We are in Europe. So service route, which allows it to plug in WCF service into the routing table of MVC.
Cool.
Yeah.
So. You mentioned OAuth as well. You're doing a session tomorrow.
No.
Is
later
tonight?
on.
Right after this interview.
Right after this interview. Yeah. So I won't keep you long. Where you will be speaking about securing REST-based services in the cloud as well. So I guess OAuth
will be at the end. Because
OAuth will be the end.
I mean, the reason for that is basically it's like the most complex scenario. I mean, OAuth can solve a number of really hard problems in an easy way, but it is still a complicated protocol, I think.
I find it maybe better suited for like traditional web applications than rich clients, but that's just my humble opinion.
It has two profiles.
I know, but so it feels kind of hacky when you do it with the rich clients. But I have to watch your session.
The last demo I'm showing, if we have time for that, is to show people that we're not making this stuff up. So for example, I'm showing Adobe Lightroom, which is an application which can publish pictures to Flickr. Okay, and they do it in a way that you never ever have to type in your password into Lightroom.
Cool.
Yeah, so they're using the consent delegation architecture of OAuth and to make that happen without having to disclose your password to some sort of client, even if it's Adobe. We don't want to. We only want to type in our passwords where they belong to, and that's our IND provider.
That's the whole.
And that's a really nice way of doing it. Yeah,
that's nice. So I won't keep you from preparing for the session now.
No, so we are prepared.
Thank you very much for coming here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.